Gojo with his 6 eyes can see cursed energy so thoroughly that if he doesn't wear a blindfold, he literally gets overwhelmed.
I didn't even know that was the blindfold reason. Gojo vs Sukuna is a top 10 manga fight. When it gets animated, let a Mappa animator mess it up. Bro, they're getting lynched. If Gojo Sukuna was in DBZ, what do you think their power levels would be? The thing about DB, bro, all them could break his infinity.
Gojo vs Sukuna has easily been the biggest fight in JJK, and even a year out, there's still people talking about it, and there's a ton of different videos that you can find on YouTube.
I'm in the video. Y'all see me?
Fight, but
hold on, y'all see me? Yes, sir. Yes, I know y'all see Zev, though.
But this video is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about the fight, but in the perspective of a rematch. We're going to take Gojo and Sukuna and give them the knowledge after their fight, and the only other big change that we're going to have in this rematch is that Sukuna is going to be in his true form, but he's going to be fully restored. With me, I have 6, and yeah, let's get started with the video. Obviously, the biggest difference now is that Sukuna is going to be in his true form, meaning he's not only going to have an extra set of arms, but he's also going to have a mouth. Sukuna is going to be able to perform chants and incantations much easier than he was before against Gojo.
I remember so many people were saying that Sukuna's incantations were plot armor, bro. Whether I think that's cap or not, I don't know, but I remember there was one he did just like near death and just immediately brought him back, bro. I have to low-key reread. I'm gonna definitely have to run that on stream.
Overall, Sukuna's gonna have a much bigger advantage in this body, which overall just has a bigger frame and more muscle, and he's just more capable for hand-to-hand combat along with performing I almost said jutsu. Along with performing curse techniques and stuff like that while fighting Gojo. The first thing to really remember is that Gojo was absolutely dominating him in their first fight. Like, it's really bad. Gojo's entire strategy for taking down Malevolent Shrine pretty much just revolves around Gojo beating up Sukuna so badly to the point where he can no longer maintain his domain. The only other time that we've ever seen this happen was when Toji stabbed Dagon so badly that he also just couldn't maintain his domain. Just to put it into perspective of how much damage you actually have to take before your domain actually crumbles. And keep in mind, Gojo was doing this in literally 3 minutes. When Gojo's Unlimited Void breaks down the first time, Gojo is still able to combat him, which is much more crazier than you might think. Obviously, Gojo in this instance doesn't have his curse technique, meaning he doesn't have his blue amplified punches and he's not amplifying his speed with blue. We learned that when sorcerers fight without their curse technique, they also lose that intuition that comes with using your curse technique for all those years to kind of build that muscle memory for combat. It would kind of be similar to if you were playing a fighting game and you kind of switched off your main. So even though you know the basic mechanics of the game and you know how it works, you don't really know the moves and you lose out on a big part of your arsenal, which just changes up everything completely.
Don't matter, Goku solos now, literally, bro. Goku solos for free. Goku solos for free. We know that. We've been discussed this.
Only is Gojo slower because he's not amplifying his speed with blue, and he's also not punching as hard because he's not amplifying his strikes with blue. Even at the fundamental level, it just seems to be a mechanic within the series that when you're fighting without your curse technique, you do just become worse overall. The question is his 4 arms gonna make up the difference? Because Sukuna is definitely on the low end of their relativity, but if we give Sukuna an extra set of arms and giving him his true form, is that gonna push him to the higher end of the relativity or even above Gojo? We just don't really know. In their first fight, Sukuna only lands 1 punch against Gojo, and it's not even a punch actually, it's a kick. Pretty much, unless he's using something like amplification, Infinity is still going to be a problem.
No, Infinity is still a problem, just specifically because Sukuna doesn't have Mahoraga this time around. Now, you might be saying, okay, Sukuna has the World Slash to use on Gojo, which is always going to be an option unless Gojo starts tearing him literally limb from limb and making sure he doesn't have 4 arms anymore.
Would Gojo actually do that, though? Would Gojo actually start tearing somebody limb for limb? He probably would. Gojo's ruthless. I don't think he wouldn't, but like in a fight though, do you think he would put that over fighting Sukuna? I don't know. I know at the end of the fight when he died, he said like he wanted to have fun in their fight. So we gonna have to, I don't know about that for real. Y'all saying yeah though.
The World Slash was made specifically to counter Gojo's Infinity. Sukuna put conditions on it because he doesn't expect to fight Gojo 2 different times, which is like a big deal in this rematch. Obviously, Sukuna's gonna have to use 2 hands to defend against Gojo. If he's inside of Gojo's domain where Gojo has Infinity up and he has to use 2 hands in order to launch off the World Slashes, there's multiple things Gojo could do to counter within that time frame, considering Gojo doesn't have to always use chance and hand sign. One specific thing that Gojo can do that we know he can do now that he was hesitant to do before is his unlimited hollow purples. But he was unsure if it was going to, completely fry him or not. But he finds out after he launches it, hey, I actually don't take that much damage from this, probably because it's his own cursed energy that's clashing with his own cursed energy again, that's reinforcing his own body. So Sukuna seemed to just take way more damage from the unlimited hollow purple. If something like that happens, even if they're in a domain clash, Sukuna's domain is obviously going to go down. And now Gojo knows his limit for how many times he can reset his burnt out curse technique. And if he can get Sukuna to have enough damage on him to the point where Sukuna is having to heal a lot more of his body before he heals out his burnt out curse technique, then he's going to get his domain off faster, and we're going to see something similar to what happened in chapter 229 before Mahoraga came back out.
If it was end of series and Gojo knew the knowledge that he knows after the battle, like how they're discussing, Gojo probably does win pretty easily, I would assume.
Infinity is still an issue, and it puts Gojo, once again, I mean, just like in every other fight, at a massive advantage, especially inside the domain clash, where Sukuna's really only way out of that is hitting Gojo with the world slash. Because if he keeps domain amplification up, obviously he's not going to be able to use his curse technique at all, even though it will be mitigating some of the damage Gojo does to him. And if he decides to use the world slash, it's even worse. He was just geeked.
I don't know about a frog. He
can also drag Sukuna around, things like that. So
a lot of people dismiss the idea of a rematch almost immediately because obviously Sukuna's cut down Gojo before, but nobody really takes in the context for how exactly that even happened. Sukuna pretty much launched off that dismantle with no conditions attached, and he did that by making a binding vow. Like Six said earlier, not only does Sukuna have to make a ton of different palm signs and chants, but Sukuna also has to direct the slash with his hands, which again is just another indicator that the slash is coming, which makes it all the more unlikely that Gojo is even going to be hit with the slash in the first place. We know that curse techniques can be felt before they're launched. Sukuna says it verbatim, and it's also shown to us when he predicts that Gojo is going to use the red, but the spark of cursed energy can be felt before techniques are activated, and with Gojo having the 6 eyes and obviously this super enhanced version of cursed energy sensory, it's going to be much easier for Gojo compared to everybody else if he's trying to sense that Sukuna's about to launch an attack coming at him. Also coupled with the fact that he's going to be pointing in his direction, it just makes it all the more unlikely that this attack is actually going to land. Now, some people might argue that because the slash
I think Gojo's a top 10, Gojo versus Sukuna is a top 10 manga fight when it gets animated, being top 5 all time. Oh, for sure. You know they're not missing with that one. You know they're not missing. And you know every single YouTuber that's in my niche is going to make a 50-minute video on it too. I already did the manga. I will definitely recover it again for when the anime version comes out. You know damn well they pulling out all stops for that, bro. You know damn well, bruh. You ain't gotta worry about it.
If you think about it in Gojo's perspective, there are like a ton of different reasons for why he wouldn't really be worried in this instance about Sukuna
let a Mappa animator mess it up. They're getting Kuta Kente on site. Bro, they're getting lynched. They either gonna put it at the exact end of the next season. I remember I saw a video. If this next season is the same length as season 2, they're gonna reach like right when Sukuna takes Megumi. They're gonna reach right when Sukuna takes Megumi's body. So they do not cover enough in a season to get to the Gojo versus Sukuna fight. So they probably could make that a movie. They could actually, because the season won't reach it. It's not going to be this season. Unless they skip stuff or they rush it, they're not going to reach it this season. Or if the season is just longer, they're not going to reach it. In terms of what's more violent, JJK or Invincible, Invincible is not even close. It's Invincible.
And overall, Gojo pretty much has won the fight. Not only are we told this in the editor's statement, but Kusakabe says it. Gojo has his RCT restored and stuff like that. In Gojo's position, you would never expect something like this from Sukuna. It's also fair to account that it's a dismantle by Sukuna that targets space instead of like an actual object, and all dismantles up until this point, besides the ones casted from Malevolent Shrine obviously, they all are directed by Sukuna pointing at his target. So up until this point, Gojo has no idea that Sukuna can even make a binding vow like this in the first place. It is a little bit different, but Kashimo just does dodge a world slash, but to be fair, Sukuna did tell him outright, dodge this. He kind of has more of a verbal indicator for the world slash coming at him, so it is a little bit different. Bro. But then again, if people like Kashimo
nigga said look out. Come on, bro. Nigga said look out. It ain't no feat. That's sub though. Nigga say look out.
World slash with some form of indication, then I think Gojo definitely can. Like, you also have to keep in mind that when it comes to Gojo's ability to sense cursed energy, Gojo with his 6 eyes can see cursed energy so thoroughly that if he doesn't wear a blindfold, he literally gets overwhelmed by the amount of information that he can see just by cursed energy. So when it comes to how the fight's gonna play,
I didn't even know that was the blindfold reason. Wow. Yo, Gojo the GOAT, bro. God damn.
In all honesty, I think both of them have pretty fair reasons for starting off with a domain expansion. Like Six said before, obviously Gojo knows that he can use his domain and recover his burnt out curse technique about 5 times. It took him about 3 times to fry Sukuna last time with Unlimited Void. It only really makes sense for Gojo to start out with his domain expansion. And then just assuming that Sukuna is not also casting Malevolent Shrine reactionary to Gojo's Unlimited Void. their best strategies for both of them are going to be casting their domain expansions, which is also ironic because it's pretty much exactly like how Yuta fights Sukuna in Gojo's body. It's pretty much exactly the same thing. Like they both start out with their domain expansions.
That's what I was going to bring up. Whenever Yuta actually comes back to fight Sukuna in Gojo's body, the first thing he does is expand his domain, and Sukuna obviously responds with Malevolent Shrine, because the only thing that can really keep up with the domain, and especially one as powerful as Unlimited Void, is another domain expansion in response. So whoever decides to open their domain first, it doesn't really matter. We just know that it's going to get to that point, and whenever it does get to that point, the other person...
Yuta did this was the craziest thing ever. When Yuta did this, bro, that was the craziest chapter drop of all time. That was so absurd.
It all comes down to what you think actually happens when their domains actually clash. Gojo's domain can withstand Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine for 3 minutes of outside, like, hurting the barrier. Gojo, within those 3 minutes, has to beat Sukuna to the point where his domain cannot be maintained. Now, most people would say, since Sukuna's in a more durable body in his hand era form, which I don't too much agree with, but it doesn't matter. We'll let it rock out for the argument. Sukuna's in a more durable body, and since he doesn't have to prioritize adaptation, he can actually use domain amplification inside of the domain in order to resist Gojo's curse techniques better. I don't think it matters too much, because it would imply essentially that Gojo is doing just enough damage to take down Sukuna's domain, where I think he's doing more. One of the best ways to prove this is just by saying that, well, the first time Gojo broke Sukuna's domain by doing enough damage to his body, Sukuna was able to recover that and his burnt out curse technique and clash with Gojo at the same time. The second or third time Gojo did it, Gojo did enough damage where Sukuna had to spend more time healing his body before he healed out his burnt out curse technique, and because of that, he was late and his domain ended up collapsing at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. So we know that Gojo is doing more than enough damage necessary in order to collapse Sukuna's domain, and now he's got an even better tool to do it through Unlimited Hollow Purple, even if that shatters his own barrier as well, because Unlimited Hollow Purple is just way stronger than a Red could ever hope to be. You saw what Red did to Sukuna whenever it hit Sukuna in the back, right? Or whenever Red hit Sukuna's face. And in the Unlimited Hollow Purple, even though Gojo's not at 100%, just like Sukuna's not at 100%, it does way more damage, puts Sukuna on his last legs, takes off limbs and all of that. So Gojo's just got a lot better win cons now this time around than he did the first time. And Sukuna this time around, although he's got a better tool for targeting Infinity and beating Infinity, the limitations he put on that tool due to not expecting a rematch make it almost irrelevant in the fight. I don't want to say completely irrelevant. Even if he does launch a slash at Gojo, launch one of his Infinity slashes, not only is Gojo more than likely going to be wary of it this time because he got cooked by it last time, even if it does, say, hit the barrier or something, and he tries to take out Gojo's barrier that way.
Also said, Domain Fat was good, but I like the beginning and the end. Gojo Yamato, my guy. Nah, literally, bro. Mahoraga, please help me. I swear. If Gojo Sukuna was in DBZ, what do you think their power levels would be? The thing about DB, bro, all them niggas could break his Infinity. The only techniques that could really scale would have to be like his purple or like his red or like his domain expansion. But like with how he is right now, he can't scale the DB, bro. That's kind of hard. Let's say they were like as strong. If I made them as strong as peak Goku, how strong would they actually be with their techniques? I feel like they would go crazy, but you know, like literally just like all their techniques kind of get invalidated by DB characters. Like all like Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks can just scream his way out of something. Mahoraga learning techniques. How impressive is that really in the world of DB, bro? He has to take enough damage to learn it before dishing it right back. What is he gonna do when a Dragon Ball character just hits him so hard he like dissipates or something? Again, if we scaled Mahoraga to Goku tier, Goku would probably enjoy having someone like copy his techniques word for word. I don't know. Mahoraga would be an issue. If Mahoraga was Goku level strength, Mahoraga would 100% be an issue. I think Mahoraga would be an issue.
Mahoraga was obviously a much more effective tool against Gojo than the World Slash was, which is why even though Sukuna knew how to do the World Slash as soon as Mahoraga did it, he chose to keep Mahoraga out, and he was even going to have him adapt to Red at a specific point.
You think Mario could take on the guy, as in like Gojo? Now, Mario wouldn't be able to hit him. Mario's not a DB level person that could just break a universe. Mario wouldn't be able to hit him.
Because what's the point in having the World Slash and World Slash only when you can have Mahoraga who has the World Slash and can continue to adapt to different techniques that Gojo has? Yeah, it just makes more sense for Sukuna to keep Mahoraga out in that instance, and that's why I think Mahoraga was a more effective tool, and why I don't think the World Slash is going to be as effective against Gojo in a rematch.
So one thing that me and Six found that I thought was pretty interesting was when Sukuna came to the conclusion that what Yuta's about to do is an unlimited purple, he comes to that conclusion after realizing that Yuta probably entered this fight thinking that this was like an all or nothing. Obviously, one unlimited hollow purple, which is what Sukuna's imagining, isn't enough to take down Gojo and Yuta in Gojo's body, more than likely. What's really the point in saying that this is going to be like an all or nothing attack if this all or nothing attack isn't even really like an all or nothing. And to me, the way I interpret that is that Sukuna is probably picturing that Yuta isn't only about to use one unlimited hollow purple, but he actually thinks he's going to use multiple. And then in that sense, over time, it would be like an all or nothing attack. It would slowly wear down Yuta and Gojo's body by just continuously taking the damage from those purples. It's not even like that the concept of Gojo spamming hollow purple is so foreign to the series. It's been flat out explained that Gojo can just spam his techniques over and over and over again, so I don't even really think it's too hard to imagine even being realistic. Even if you were to just go all out in explaining how you think this fight would go, let's say they don't enter the domain period. There's already the problems that we mentioned earlier, but if Sukuna tries coming at Gojo with something like amplification, obviously Sukuna can't use amplification and his curse technique at the same time. But if he uses amplification, then maybe his physical attacks will be able to do some damage to Gojo, but even then, like, I don't really think that they're going to be very helpful. Gojo isn't afraid of turning off his limitless to engage in hand-to-hand combat. We see him do this verbatim against Sukuna.
What they're basically saying, Gojo's gonna wipe it in any way possible. If they ever rematched, Gojo's winning in, like, it's only because Sukuna caught him off guard, essentially. It's like the main gist of the video. It's only because Sukuna got him off guard.
Against Mahoraga
if he was not caught off guard, Gojo's winning.
Agito, so even in a 2v1 situation, like, Gojo doesn't mind putting himself at a temporary disadvantage to take back his footing in a hand-to-hand combat scenario. It is fair to mention that Sukuna can use amplification pretty quickly. Like in this example against Gojo, Gojo goes for a kick, and right before the kick lands, Sukuna quickly activates amplification, turning the wheel black. So even if strikes are about to happen, it's not like Sukuna can't just turn on and off amplification, but will Sukuna really be fast enough to activate amplification, then charge up a curse technique and fire it at Gojo? Probably not. You probably have to make a lot more assumptions than just, you know, dodging a kick. So while there are examples of Sukuna being able to turn off amplification really quickly, and that might give him an advantage in hand-to-hand combat, I highly doubt it's going to be long enough for Sukuna to really do anything too crazy. The best case scenario for something like this would be like if Sukuna activates amplification and then maybe he hits Gojo with a cleave, but I highly doubt something like that is going to happen, especially considering just how fast and strong Gojo was. I really don't think that's going to be a working strategy in this fight, because like Six said, even though Sukuna is going to be in a better form for hand-to-hand combat, and he might even be faster and stronger, we just don't really know by how much, because again, it's very possible that Gojo inside of his domain was doing more than enough damage to take down Sukuna's barrier, and it's not like Sukuna being in his true form is going to put him like just over the edge or massively above. It might, but we just really don't know. Obviously, having an extra set of hands is going to be problematic for Gojo in really close range, but if it is problematic, then Gojo can literally just throw him a blue. We see this verbatim happen inside of the domain. When Sukuna is just spamming block, Gojo literally just runs up behind him and throws him around with blue. Even if Gojo's put into a position where Sukuna's just blocking every attack he throws at him, there is literally no problem with Gojo just going behind him and throwing him a blue. So pretty much no matter what way you slice it, it's pretty bad for Sukuna. Now let's say hypothetically they both enter the domain and then eventually Gojo does the unlimited hollow purple like Six was talking about. It's going to be really bad for Sukuna because if they're both hit with unlimited purple, Sukuna is just going to take more damage than Gojo because Gojo's getting hit with his own cursed energy, and just overall that doesn't do as much damage to himself.
Now, real life, I don't know if they bring up any other points. Like, I think it's just Gojo will just wipe.
I think it's important to understand what Gojo meant by this, because not giving it your all can mean a couple of things. It can mean Sukuna was maybe pulling his punches.
I don't know about pulling his punches. I don't think Sukuna might not have been able to use all of his techniques because he was in a different body.
Earlier, how Sukuna wasn't using domain amplification inside of the domain clashes because he had Mahoraga there and he was waiting for Mahoraga to adapt. And Mahoraga is specifically making the fight easier for Sukuna, as Sukuna says to Gojo. Gojo's like, I didn't know you were fighting as hard as this, and Sukuna's like, well, I'm not fighting as hard as you. Literally just saying, hey, Mahoraga's making it to where I don't have to fight, you know, that hard. It also could be in reference to Sukuna holding back his true form, or not using his true form, but Gojo shouldn't know that he's able to do that. He doesn't do that until Gojo dies, and I don't think he says that to Gojo at any point. So there's no reason to assume that.
Literally, bro.
So when Gojo says Sukuna's holding back.
But yeah, I think Gojo low-key just negs. I ain't gonna lie. If they was to ever rematch, Gojo high-key just negs, bro. It's actually crazy.